Okay guys, today we're going to finish breaking down the running process and talk about the third and final phase, and that's the pull phase. This is where your hip or thigh extensor muscles play yet another major role. And this pull phase is a very unique phase of the running process, and one that I'm certain that most athletes don't even know about. And so what you learn here is certainly going to give you an immediate advantage over your opponents and help you take your game to the next level. And if you recall, the pull phase combined with the swing phase that we talked about in the last video determines how fast your turnover rate will be, and this ultimately affects your running speed. Therefore, we're going to talk about this in more detail here as well. So let's get right to it and start by taking a look at the pull phase in action in this video. Okay, once again, we have an athlete on the football practice field, and he is getting set to run a 100-yard dash. He takes off and is soon up to full speed, but it's happening too fast right now to see each phase in action. But if we slow it down, we'll get a chance to stop the video at a point that'll allow us to define the beginning of this pull phase. Okay, right here is a good place to stop, and the reference leg that we'll be using to discuss the pull phase is the right leg. Now, if you remember from our previous discussion of the swing phase, this was actually the end of the swing phase for the right leg, where the foot just landed and made contact with the ground in front of him. But now, this position serves as a starting position of the pull phase. The first thing I want you to notice here is the position of his right thigh in relation to the ground, and you will see that it is still flexed forward and is not perpendicular or straight to the ground. If we advance the video a little, you'll see his right thigh has to start extending backward, and this essentially pulls him forward. And this action of being pulled forward is where we get the name for the pull phase. Now, the video is stopped in this position for a reason. Notice the position of his right thigh. It is perpendicular to the ground. This position of his thigh represents the end of the pull phase, and if you recall, this was also the starting position of the push phase. Let's take a look at this sequence again. This entire motion of the pull phase is controlled primarily by your hip extensor muscles, which include your gluteus maximus and your hamstrings. Remember what we said about your hamstrings having two functions? They were knee flexion and hip extension. Well, here you can see the real power of the hamstrings acting as hip extensors. Let's watch this a couple more times. This pull phase is the shortest of all three phases. However, it is a very powerful phase. Training your hip extensor muscles properly for this pull phase will make you a much faster runner. As you might have guessed, the pull phase transitions into the push phase, and the whole running process repeats itself again and again. Now, as I mentioned in the video, your hamstrings play a huge role in this phase, and they do so acting primarily as hip extensors or thigh extensors. But most athletes might only think of them as knee flexors, where you may have trained them in the past on a leg curl machine. And if you think leg curl machines are really going to help your running speed a lot, then think again. First of all, leg curl machines are excellent machines to use, and you should use them whenever necessary. However, they only train the lower part of your hamstring muscles for knee flexion, and that particular movement does not make up a big part of the sprinting motion. Instead, it's the upper part of the hamstrings that are attached to your pelvis that extend the thigh or hip backward. That is a more dominant action during the running motion as seen in this pull phase. So your hamstrings, along with your gluteus maximus muscle, are very powerful hip extensors, and they drive this pull phase. But they need to be targeted properly to affect your running speed. Now, this pull phase is the shortest of all the phases. However, it is an extremely critical phase because not only does it help your speed while you're running, it actually helps you to get a quicker start from a motionless or a still position during any athletic activity. And this is because before you can start to run, your body has to lean forward a little and then lower itself a bit first to force the knee and the hip into flexion, because these two positions are necessary to help initiate the running process from an upright stance. And if you recall from the video that you just watched, hip flexion and knee flexion are characteristic with the start of the pull phase. So developing a quicker and stronger pull phase is an extremely important skill to have as an athlete. If you are a baseball player, it'll help you get up to speed during the first couple of steps coming out of the batter's box and racing down the line to first base. And it'll help you get a good jump if you're looking to steal second. In basketball, where your direction changes all the time, it helps you get a much quicker start to steal a pass or dive for a loose ball. Plus, it'll make you a much better defender by improving all of your anticipation skills, which are necessary to get you into the more dominant position to totally shut down your opponent. The pull phase also initiates the momentum necessary to jump higher and farther, and it helps you to accelerate your legs just before you punt or kick a ball. So it is a very big deal for an athlete to be able to access more muscle, speed, and power when they need it, and separate from the competition. And developing a more powerful pull phase will help you with this. Now, along with the swing phase that we talked about in the last video, the pull phase is often overlooked by a lot of athletes simply because there's no real good equipment in the gym to simulate this movement in the proper planes of motion for this running phase. And like the swing phase, there was probably never any importance placed on it in the first place. So the pull phase is definitely an area for you to look forward to improving as you continue to grow into a more competitive athlete. Now you might say that you're already training your hamstrings and your glutes, so what's the big deal? But then I have to ask, what exercises are you doing right now to simulate the exact motion that these muscles are needed for the pull phase? What you might come to find out is that, sure, you may be training them, but only for the push phase. Again, squats, leg presses, leg extensions, and leg curls, they won't affect this pull phase the way they need to. And you might have a little success with tying a parachute or a weight sled around your waist and running down the track or field. But remember what I said about fast twitch muscle fibers really responding to isometric training with the resistance band? Well, it just so happens that your hamstrings are absolutely loaded with fast twitch fibers too. But if you burn them out with heavy training exercises, you're going to strip away all the elastic stretch potential in your muscles and tendons needed for speed. And again, you can feel this by how slow you are after a heavy workout. Remember, your fast twitch fibers are really fast and are very strong, but they fatigue or get tired really quickly. So if you are only engaging in an exercise routine that burns these muscle fibers out again and again each time you get to the track or gym, then you are working against the natural speed instincts of these muscles. Your conditioning is taking them away from a speed function and towards an endurance function, and that can actually hurt your speed. So while you need to do these types of exercises for strength, where athletes get caught is when they mistakenly overdo them by trying to perform a repetition faster and faster and thinking that what they are doing is all of a sudden a speed training program, because it's not. It's really an accelerated endurance program. And this excessive type of training can reduce your speed and quickness, especially if this extra weight is added to muscles that don't play any major role in your athletic skill. If that occurs, it simply becomes excess baggage, and carrying these extra pounds around won't make you as efficient of a runner or as fast of a runner as you can be. Now the pull phase is also very important to your top end running speed because when it is combined with the swing phase, it makes up and it affects your turnover rate. Your turnover rate, if you recall, is defined as how fast you can recycle your legs through both the swing phase and the pull phase. So let's take a look at both of these phases in action in this next video. Now your turnover rate is a combination of the swing phase and the pull phase. And this image is the beginning of the swing phase for the right leg and will initiate the turnover rate. If we advance the video a little, you will see the entire swing phase for the right leg in action. This is immediately followed by the pull phase for the right leg. Let's watch this sequence again. Let's speed this up a little and watch it again. Let's speed it up a little faster still and watch the turnover rate one last time. Now the run faster, jump higher, and kick farther programs all have specific exercises needed to improve the pull phase of running, which you just saw here. The exercises in these training programs all use the resistance band with an isometric training strategy for speed and are unlike anything you have ever done. One of the biggest differences that people notice is that when they use our programs, they don't get tired or fatigued afterwards. Instead, they feel lighter, faster, and more responsive. And this is usually a very unique feeling for athletes the first time they try our programs. And so for those of you who may be interested in all the details about how and why using the resistance band with an isometric training strategy makes your muscles faster, I'm going to be talking about this in greater detail than I ever have before in the next video, so make sure you check your email for this important information. And with that, I'll see you back here again shortly. For Athletic Quickness, I'm Dr. Larry Van Such.